The poet Lev Kuklin wrote in his poem Cycle, "Everything in the world is connected by an imperishable chain." By the way, when I was about 19 or maybe 20, I also wrote a short poem. It was in free verse, actually, and I called it Whirl, with thoughts that were in fact very close to what Lev expressed. Here is the continuation of his poem. Everything in the world is linked by an eternal chain. Everything is included in a single cycle. If you pick a flower somewhere in the universe, at that moment, a star will explode and die. Beautiful, isn't it? In the state of Georgia in 2020, they did more than just pick a flower. They picked a lot of flowers. They're similar. So they stole 40 boxes of ballots, and with that, in 2020, they changed the course of history. And somewhere, because of those boxes, not the boxes themselves, but the ballots, about 40 boxes of ballots, they manipulated things somewhere in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people started dying in Israel, directly related to the fact that they manipulated things. Yes, and thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people started dying. People who had never even heard about it. They had never heard of Fulton County in the state of Georgia, or maybe even of Georgia itself. But their sons, husbands, and fathers started dying. Their carefree childhood turned into a nightmare, and their dreams and hopes were shattered in an instant. So what happened next?
Democrats and representatives of the mainstream media are in a panic today because the story of Fulton County has just been fully revealed. Georgia informed the FBI that there were 700 boxes of election materials in their warehouse that had been counted.
They closed, sealed, and stacked just over 700 boxes. But why keep them? You might ask, so they could be checked. It's very simple, but someone didn't want them to be checked. And 40 boxes disappeared.
But after searching the building, they discovered that 40 boxes were missing. Also, allegedly, there was a tip-off that they would come on a certain day to take out all the materials.
And someone else from the Federal Service informed the storage facility where all this was kept that AS would come on a certain day and take certain things. The materials and boxes disappeared. But on the same day, in another part of the country, without warning, it was already Tulsi. Gabbard searched the campaign headquarters in Puerto Rico, where there were exactly the same voting machines as in Georgia, and took away all the computers, all the parking passes, all the documents, and the machines themselves. In a well-known direction, the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Recently emerged details about the raid in Fulton County raise serious questions about possible cover-up. Here's what is happening according to official statements from Fulton County authorities. Federal agents arrived at the very end of January with a court-issued seizure warrant in hand. 700 boxes of election materials, including ballots, tabulator tapes, digital images, equipment, and complete voter lists. However, when the operation was fully completed, it became clear that 40 boxes had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. A post is currently going viral on the social network X, claiming that just a few days before the FBI search, a former agent of the Bureau secretly warned the local election commission about the upcoming visit and what exactly they plan to seize.
In other words, the deep state is interconnected and defends itself, as they say, to the death.
At the same time, President Trump has officially tasked Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard with leading the investigation into the rigged elections. As you can see below, President Trump now realizes, wait a minute, 40 to 50 boxes are missing. Where did all that information go, and what are they really trying so hard to hide from us? So, Gabbard's office confirmed that she was vetted. The team secretly obtained and thoroughly analyzed voting machines from Puerto Rico, discovering extremely serious cybersecurity issues. Now, some very obvious questions arise. Who exactly informed the Fulton County Election Commission? Where are those 40 boxes of missing evidence? Why is there such a coincidence in the evidence? And why did these particular boxes disappear? Who is preventing this? Please tell me in the comments, why would the state of Georgia spend millions of dollars to hide election data? Then why did they spend between $20 and $30 million trying to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life? And why are they now suing to get back the evidence that was obtained during the FBI raid approved by a judge?
The state of Georgia is in a panic. Well, the state leadership is in a complete panic. They filed a lawsuit demanding that the boxes that were seized from them immediately, the ones Tulsi took, be returned. Oh, horror, it's such a nightmare. It's a raid. It's a violation of democracy. They want them returned immediately without looking through them or checking anything. By no means, just don't look inside. Return them without looking. So the electronic devices used for vote counting were easily manipulated from outside. Well, it's unclear whether it was through internet access or not. It's absolutely unclear where the extra ballots in Georgia and many other states came from without signatures. I mean the signatures of the staff who received them. It's unclear who accepted them. It's unclear how they got there. It's unclear who brought them in. And then they disappeared as well. After all this happened, it was impossible to figure anything out. Yes, 40-plus boxes right before the raid. What are they hiding? We all understand that it's something related to the actions of the Democratic Party of the United States of America in the 2020 elections. But what exactly? So how exactly did they cheat? It's clear that since all this was happening, there must have been some kind of deception, right? But specifically, how are we being deceived? And how can we prevent this in the future, right? To figure out what happened in the past, punish those responsible, and understand how to prevent it in the future. In Georgia, Biden supposedly won by a margin of 12,000 votes. That's 0.5% of the voters, right? In Arizona, it was 10,000 votes as well. There, I think it's less than 1%. I could be wrong. Maybe 1% right, but it's around 1. In Wisconsin, it's a bit more, 20%. 20,000 votes, which is also a small percentage. Yes, in all these states, they had the same electronic counting devices, which, as I already said, could be accessed from the outside. On the night of the count, the strangest things were happening. If it turns out that in all these states there was cheating and the voters were deceived, yes, that's a federal crime in the United States. Then in 2020, it means that Biden became the president of the United States, as we know. But it would have been Trump if we had discovered this, if we had been able to uncover it. They once again stood like a wall to the death. They were ready for this. They knew they would cheat. They knew what we would do. They calculated everything. And they stood as a wall, prepared in advance. 60 judges refused to take the cases. They didn't say anything was wrong. They got scared and didn't take the cases into consideration. So, someone came up with that. I think they got a good bonus for it. What would have changed, you might ask, if it wasn't Sleepy Joe, but Donald J? Trump continued to sit and run the show from 2020 to 2024. Well, let's go over a few things. Yes, the United States' withdrawal from Afghanistan wouldn't have been a chaotic escape. It would have been an orderly, negotiated departure. But in my opinion, it was an escape. This escape showed the world that the United States is not a reliable partner and is no longer a strong power, which immediately emboldened its opponents, filling the power vacuum. Well, again, who is watching? Who is reading the history of our 5,700 years of history? This was happening, as they say, daily, hourly, on every continent, in every city, in every corner of the globe. So, who started to fill the gap? That's China, Russia, Iran. Not very friendly countries there, right? Secondly, millions of migrants distracted the United States from international affairs. Let's say the refusal to support Israel came from traditional Sunni partners in the Middle East. All this led to increased terrorist activity by Russia and Iran. Well, they trained, so to speak. It's no secret to anyone. Acting through the hands of armed, let's call them armed Muslim gangs, gang formations, such gang formations. Third, China turned its attention to Africa and hastily began buying up mining rights for minerals almost all over the world, and did so very successfully. As we know, for example, rare earth elements, as they're called, yes, almost all of them are in China's hands. And without them, you can't wage war, you simply can't fight. You use all you have, but then How do you create something new? Fourth, in the United States, a civil confrontation has begun, funded by Chinese and globalist money coming from China and the globalists. Moreover, the ideas from the left lacked common sense, and the right couldn't agree with that. There could be no compromise. What kind of compromise could there be in this situation? In voting without identification, we demand that people vote without identification. How can you justify that? Well, they don't care how to justify it. The main thing is to shout loudly, have a lot of money, and pay people so they also run around and shout loudly. Men and women's sports, how can anyone seriously defend that? Yet they did defend it. Gender reassignment for children is simply a crime against humanity. Hiring and admitting people to work or study based on skin color and not on merit or skills is draining the lifeblood from our science, from everything. Fifth, slowing down the extraction of natural resources and the green agenda have led to higher fuel prices and record highs. Fifth, China openly stole our technologies, sent spies, universities, and did not allow United States goods into its market. Definitely, that's the fifth point. On October 7, 2023, there was a mass killing of Jews in Israel, which led to a war with Hamas and then with Iran. If that hadn't happened, well, simply so it wouldn't have happened. Eighth, Russia attacked Ukraine. It shouldn't have happened if the Democrats hadn't managed to stuff ballots in Georgia and in a few other states, intimidate judges, and convince the public that Trump was trying to seize power and become a dictator. The thief shouts, "Stop the thief!" louder than anyone else and points the finger at someone else. In Ukraine, there are 10 million displaced people and about 1 million killed, maimed, and wounded. And all this is because someone in the Democratic Party of the state of Georgia decided to rig the elections. You pick a flower, and somewhere in the universe at that moment, a star explodes and dies. Millions of stars have died and exploded just in Ukraine. And how many more have exploded in other parts of the world because of the creatures from Fulton County? The same organizers are trying to fight the investigations in Georgia and in other states.
Federal prosecutors in Minnesota have now charged and arrested 158 activists protesting against immigration and customs enforcement. Let me bring this up on the screen. So, 158 people were arrested. These were people who were sending a very clear signal that they were deliberately and violently attacking federal immigration and customs enforcement agents. The charges include violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, conspiracy, obstruction of federal agents, and multiple counts. Under Title 18 United States Code Section 111 for violent assault or obstruction of federal officers, these crimes carry a penalty of up to 20 years in federal prison, especially if you brought a weapon, used a weapon, or injured a federal agent.
If the first 3 to 5 get 20 years, the ranks of the higher Democrats will thin out. I'm curious why they were arrested.
At the moment, among the accused are provocateurs who tried to block immigration and customs enforcement vehicles with several cars. They spat in officers' faces, hit officers, threw bricks at officers, and disrupted church gatherings. And in one case, they approached CPB with a baseball bat, chasing them for several blocks.
That is, the killed owner who drove at the police officer would have been arrested. The idiot who spat into the police car window, broke a streetlight, and brought a gun to the confrontation and was killed would have been arrested. But thank God they're starting to reap what they've sown. Now we need to get to those who pay them for their work.
And here's what I'm reading. A huge database is being compiled right now. And Border Chief Tom Homan said that these organizers will be arrested, so they expect that hundreds, if not more than 1,000 people will be arrested. All these people were breaking the law right in front of the cameras. Undoubtedly, this is just great news, but personally, I'm still trying to find out who exactly financed this carefully planned and coordinated attack on A real criminal conspiracy, not just a conspiracy theory. After all, it means that people joined forces to attack or inflict serious bodily harm on federal officers. Why?
Why is someone funding this? It's very simple. They need to distract attention from what they've done over 4 years with Biden. Like, again, as Jvanetsky said, when you're asked what's hanging on your shoulder during the workday and you don't want to say you went swimming in the river, you just make something up. But as soon as you're told that a construction crane has fallen, you immediately want to talk about something on your shoulder, and you say, "It's a towel. I have a towel on my shoulder." It's the same principle. We have a towel, not the murder of millions of people in Ukraine, not fleeing Afghanistan to cover up the theft of billions in military equipment. We have a towel, not gas, not an Iranian atomic bomb, but a towel, not 100,000 deaths a year from fentanyl, but a towel. But they can't bring us down with their stories, supposed people's anger, or the tears of young crocodiles. You told Putin that if he quickly and without much blood takes over Ukraine, we won't interfere. You told Poroshenko, fire the prosecutor general who's investigating our children who are stealing in Ukraine, and if you don't fire him, Ukraine won't see the American billion. You explained to Zelensky that he shouldn't dare end this war that's so profitable for you and everyone else. That's on you. Those who rigged the ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, that's not just a towel, that's blood on your hands, blood up to your elbows. Why did you kill 1 million people in Ukraine? Why do you need rocket attacks on Tel Aviv? Why do you need wars and killings in Somalia, Darfur, Congo, Rwanda? Why do you want Armenians and Azerbaijanis to kill each other? After all, you don't do all this for nothing, so what did you get out of it? Another 4 years in power, which means 4 years of black caviar and beluga, expensive champagne, and of course, luxury suites on islands where you travel at our expense, hosting your literary conferences, gathering the elite from somewhere in the universe. And you also don't care that 6 million people were killed in Rwanda and Congo, just like you didn't care about the 6 million killed by Germans, Ukrainians, Poles, French, and Jews, and that Great Britain told Germany in 1939 that it would not allow the resettlement of German Jews to Palestine, knowing the truth, knowing what would happen to them, but still refused, and that the British absolutely didn't care what the Germans would do with this completely unwanted and unpleasant race. And Leonore Roosevelt, such a charmer and sweetheart, wrote in her diaries, she used to write in her diaries, Hitler offered us to take the Jews, but we can barely cope with our own. Why would we need someone else's? So nothing has changed in this world? Yes, gentlemen, well, Genghis Khan or Roosevelt, it's all the same, just like Hitler and so on. I don't know, maybe Napoleon Bonaparte. Maybe only one thing has changed for the Jews. They got their own piece of land and a fist, and if that fist weakens, then from the river to the sea there will be a sea of blood. If Ukraine doesn't create a fist on its own land, it won't exist for much longer. If America doesn't return to what it started with, free, independent economic and military relations, a strong state, then internal contradictions will split it apart, and external enemies will finish it off. Just like they, the barbarians, finished off all the empires of the world, all the empires of the world. And neither the United Nations ESCO nor even the Paris Green Northern Agreement on robbing the rich will help. There is one protection, and it's called strength. And there is one way to coexist, it's called morality. You don't touch me, I don't touch you. Why don't you touch? Because if there is a massacre, the one who supposedly wins will be in such a miserable state that it would have been better not to start at all. And then someone else will come, someone who wasn't involved, who was just watching from the side, and they'll finish you off. Those who cheated with the ballots were very happy, but not for long. Then they got nervous about getting caught, And later they went into hysteria and panic when they realized they would be put on trial. I'd like to ask them, was it worth it? Was it really worth it? It's pointless to ask them about Ukrainian children. If Zelensky doesn't care about them, then why should they, those sitting in Britain, France, Germany, America, and so on, care about them? They didn't care about their own people. By the way, that's monstrous and terrible. That's really monstrous and terrible. Until next time.